Okay, so welcome everybody to this presentation. Yes, we are a flight school, but at least during this time, I'm not going to try and sell, well, not a lot. Just a couple of slides about who we are, but we're going to focus on how to prepare for airline assessments. And it's honest advice that is suitable for any other programs that we offer with our partner airlines, but it will also be applicable to most airline programs out there as well. Okay, and in general terms, if you're also considering the self-sponsored routes, the tips that we're going to share will also be useful. Okay. I asked the question just a few minutes ago if anyone had attended the Ryanair presentation, and I'm not sure if some of the people who are entering now probably come from that presentation, but they literally just made an announcement, which is FTE as their new partner for a mentored program. And we're going to be the exclusive training provider in Spain, and we are going to be able to accept applications for this program from British and European candidates to join Ryanair through integrated or modular routes. Apart from that, we are also approved by British Airways as one of the two schools for the Speedbird Academy program. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with or probably are applying for, and that is currently open for applications. We've just a few days ago, Aer Lingus closed their program. I'm not sure if anyone applied for the Aer Lingus Future Pilot program. But that's good luck. But we're one of the approved schools as well. Well, the only one actually, exclusive training provider. So we do have experience with a lot of airline programs. Let's go through some slides there. We train numerous airlines. We're talking about flag carriers like Aer Lingus, Air Astana from Kazakhstan, British Airways, Etihad, Iberia, Vueling, and many more. BA City Flyer, we could go on. And we've been doing this for 3 decades already. We're now celebrating 25 years in Jerez, but originally the school was located in Prestwick back in the days as British Aerospace. And then we moved the operation in the 90s, in 1999 to be precise, to Jerez. And we've been operating as Flight Training Europe since 2002. And obviously, it's a lot of experience and a lot of programs that we've been running for airlines in this period of time. That's just some of our airline partners. It was interesting because Ryanair pointed something out in their tips, like what to look at when you look at a school. And they're talking about airline partnerships. And to be very cautious, this is literally what they were just saying, that when you go on a website, you may see lots of logos of airlines. That doesn't mean they have a partnership with the airline. So anyone can copy-paste a logo from the internet and put it on their site. So make sure that when you're looking at schools and you're looking at what airlines they work with, you just don't check the logos on the site, but actually the actual cadet programs that they run with those airlines. And you can check the news section to see what exact relationship they have with airlines. There are very few ATOs out there that have a number of partnerships with airlines where they do the selection for them and they run the cadet programs for them, okay? FTE is pretty unique, as you can see, that is just part of our campus. All of that is FTE. We have a total of 70,000 square meters of facilities and growing as we speak. All of the training is delivered on one location, and the accommodation services are all provided on one site. And that is our location in southern Spain. So just an hour drive from Seville, 2 hour drive from Malaga, and surrounded by different airports, including Jerez itself. So easy to get there. Now, if you want to find out more about FTE specifically, please come and speak to us to our stand if you haven't done that already. But as I promised, the sales pitch was just going to be short. I was going to start talking about assessment. So at least the way we understand it, we are not identifying people who are going to become a pilot only. We are identifying people who have the potential to become captains. And that is what especially an airline cadet program is looking for. Especially if they invest money, they want to see a return. So they want people who are going to stay with that airline for many years and become captains. So we have to seek that captaincy potential, okay? And that's a key word, potential. So you can get there. Obviously, young candidates don't have yet the experience to be captains, but you can already start identifying leadership skills, teamwork skills, etc., that are key to develop that captaincy potential. We've been around, as I mentioned, for 30 years, so we have a lot of experience training both self-sponsored students with a dedicated career department to help them join the airlines and prepare them for those assessments. And at the same time, we've been running the selections for numerous airline programs. So we believe we do have the experience in this area, and that entitles us to be able to give some valid advice. We have an in-house specific department for the assessment with people from different backgrounds. Some are aviators themselves with recruitment experience. Others are psychologists. All of the tests have gone through numerous tests and studies, as you can imagine. And when we use software from external companies, like at present we use Cut-E from Aon. It's always a software that we've tested numerous times, that we've compared against what we had before, and we're looking always at the cutting-edge technology out there for assessments. And obviously, we have literally thousands of applications coming through each year, so we learn from that, and we update our benchmark constantly. So, how does it work? This can vary from one program to another, but this is more or less in general terms how it would work. When an airline program is launched, the first application will be online, of course, and sometimes the filter you'll find is very simple. It's yes and no questions. And this is basically making sure that you meet the requirements that are outlined. It goes without saying that you should actually read the terms and conditions of a program, make sure that you do qualify, and don't really waste your time if you see that you do not meet the qualifications that they're asking for. Because these questions are known as killer questions. So it's like, do you have the right to live and work in the UK? No. Well, if that's a requirement, that's it. That application is not going further. We do sometimes receive an email from someone who says, oh, I was rejected by a machine. No one looked at my qualification. Yes, but that's the whole point of this initial filter, and you didn't meet this requirement. Doesn't matter what else you have. If they're basic requirements, you have to meet them all, no exceptions. And if we were to make an exception, you have to go back to everyone who's replied wrongly and say, listen, we made this exception, so we're now considering it doesn't work that way. So one important thing is, it sounds pretty surprising, but I can assure you it's important, read the questions. Because a lot of people answer incorrectly. It could be that it's not just, do you have the right to, yes, no, do you, yeah. And then suddenly you have a question is, do you know of any reason that would prevent you from holding a Class 1 medical? And someone says, yes. Because they think we're asking, do you have a Class 1 medical? It's the opposite. And we can't tamper with those results after, oh, I have a mistake. Well, that's it. That application is dead. So it's important that if it's important to you to be selected, don't answer these questionnaires from your phone while you're on the bus or you're watching Netflix or eating pizza. Make sure you have your full attention, review before submitting, and then press submit. And this goes for every single step of the process that you can imagine. But from the very, very initial one, read the requirements. I mean, if someone bothered writing requirements, it's the reason. Check the financials involved, because it may be an airline program, but you have to pay for it. So that's a mentored program, and perhaps you're only considering part-sponsored or fully sponsored program. So look at all of the details. If it's an ATPL and MPL, are you familiar with MPL, the multi-pilot license? So that's all the stuff you have to do. And if there's a time in which you have to apply, well, you don't have to apply the very first day. So you may have 2 weeks to send the application. So don't leave it for the last day, but take some time to really study if that's for you, what you want to do, and what you're going to say in the next fields. So some occasions, in one format or another, that if you successfully complete phase 1, you'll progress to a phase 2 where you have 1 to 3 days to complete a questionnaire. And that questionnaire will normally be an essay type question. So that is where you can actually sell yourself, and that's where you can explain your motivation. There's an amazing thing called Word document that will normally, if you activate it, it shows your spelling mistakes. So submitting something with spelling mistakes shows a lack of accuracy. And if you go back to that captaincy potential, lack of accuracy is not good. So typos, slang, etc. on this kind of communication, especially when you had time to do it, to have someone who's good at it help you out. And I'm not going to get started with ChatGPT. That's great. And I'll tell you something. We are starting. I'm not sure how fast ChatGPT will keep running away from us, but we're starting to identify texts that come from ChatGPT. I've even seen an application where they copy pasted a bit too much from ChatGPT, and the first opening sentence of the email was, "Sure, this is your email for the flight school you want to apply for." So even if you're using ChatGPT, which I know I could advise against it, use it wisely, okay? It's good to use it to help you out with that one sentence, but try and keep your personality present in what you're submitting. Because I'll tell you something, when you read 10 applications that have gone through AI, you realize this is all the same. Comes from exactly the same software. It's the same way of speaking. So use your own personality as well. Don't be afraid of doing that. But as I said, make sure that it's correct. Run it through other people. What is the message you want to convey? And if you have 250 words limit, you don't have to have 249 or 250. Could even be 200, but don't send a one-liner. Okay, it doesn't matter how good the one-liner is, and that's another thing we see. It shows a lack of motivation. That that's it. Why do you want to be a pilot? It's always been my dream. Great, thank you for your time, but we want to see a bit more than that. Okay. Of course, this phase, we're not going to eliminate a huge amount of people. We're going to invite people who meet the other requirements, etc. But we do use this to identify, as I said, that lack of attention to detail. And sometimes you may see that instead of this kind of process, you have additional filters, like in phase 1, with more questions and some areas to submit a cover letter rather than answer some essay kind of questions, okay? Some assessments will include a video that you have to submit through their software, and they're filming you answering like interview style questions. That's also a possible filter that you would encounter this second phase. For people who are non-native English speakers, you should expect an English test at some stage. Normally it's an online written test followed by a video, short interview or a listening exercise. I'm assuming most of the people in the room will speak English at a very good level, if not native, so we can move on to the next slide. And now we come to a key element, the FTE assessment, okay? For instance, if you have applied or are planning to apply for the BA program, you will go through all of their initial tests and screening. But if you're one of the 250 deserving and mildly lucky candidates who reach that assessment stage in Waterside, we'll be running those assessments. And these assessments are the same we use for the self-sponsor students, but the benchmark is a bit different, of course. We have to establish a number of students who are going to progress to the next stage. So the best are the ones who progress to the next stage. So you still could have the potential to become a pilot. You could be suitable for a self-sponsored program, but for very competitive schemes, like the BAs, for example, you may not make the cut. You've got to be at the top, and you've got to be an all-rounder. You've got to be good in the written test, in the interview, group exercise, etc. These assessments could take place at the headquarters of the airline or in Jerez, depending on the program. BA, for example, it's at Waterside. And normally the cost of accommodation and transportation will be on the candidates, okay? But at least for our current programs, we don't charge any fees. So be wary as well of assessment programs with hefty fees that you have to pay, and it's all a bit odd, and it's a second company. There's stuff around that if it's fishy, if it smells bad, it probably is rotten. So you know, make sure when they're asking money from the very beginning to apply, you got to be cautious. Okay. In some occasions, part of the assessments, or all, could be done online with using Safe Exam Browser, which you'd have to install, etc. For self-sponsored students, normally we do everything online nowadays. But for airlines, sometimes it's just the final cut E or something like that once we've already seen face-to-face the candidates. So these assessments have a what we call the cut E, which is part of Aon. Cut E can vary from one school to another, or for different airlines, because there's a number of exercises, and each organization will choose the ones that they believe are more relevant. We do a mix of 7, and they assess a number of abilities, so spatial awareness, multitasking, etc. We don't need hardware, so there's no joystick or special console. You just use the standard keyboard to put the input in, and it's normally it's going to measure your natural abilities to fly, so or potentially fly. So there's a lot of software out there to practice, but you've got to be careful because you can have negative practice. You can practice with something which is not accurate, and when you do the real test, you find it so different that you've practiced negative traits, and it's not good. So by all means, do your own research. There's lots of videos on YouTube of people explaining what CUTI is all about, and you can see videos, etc. So you're familiar with it, but I would advise against actually practicing it with software you can find online, okay? Okay, regarding the written test, you are provided with a pre-test guide, and if anyone wants to take note of a link, if you go on FTEJerez.com/pre-test, all one word, not with a hyphen as it's there. So FTEJerez.com/pre-test, you'll be able to download a PDF, about 20 odd pages, explaining what the written tests are all about, okay? Those written tests include verbal reasoning, maths and physics, numerical reasoning, and numeracy. It is a GCSE level of maths and physics. If you've done maths and physics at A level, even better. If you've done an engineering, I would say even better, but probably you'd actually have to go back and review some very basic concepts. But you're allowed, it's multiple choice. You're allowed to use a calculator, and it's obviously you have a time limit, about, depending on the test, 25 to 30 minutes per test. So in about 2 hours, just under 2 hours, you finish all the written tests, and you do them all in one go. Sorry? Mm-hmm. It is for some of the programs, most of the programs like BA, etc. But if you're applying as self-sponsored, it can be done online as well. Now, the level of maths and physics, as I said, if you download that guide, you've got all the information you need. But it's also a matter of what scores you obtain. So it's not 50% and you're done. So normally we're aiming for 65 to 75% on each exercise, pass rate. But for an airline program, a 75% may not cut it. Your overall average should be in the region of 85, 90. And obviously higher than that, the better chance to progress. So it's all about accuracy and preparing well. And as I said, I've just given you the guide, so you can prepare well already. That's another thing. If you're seriously thinking about applying for airline programs, don't wait for the airline programs to pop up. Prepare from today. Because sometimes they open, there's an airline program that will be announced shortly, and I think the moment it's announced until application close will only be 2 weeks. So you would be doing your assessments in 3-4 weeks. So if you have to start reviewing maths and physics by the time you apply and you're invited to the assessments, you probably won't have time. So start today, make sure that you know what the key areas are and that you're prepared well for them, and that way you'll always be ready, basically. Now, the interview. When we do the interview, we know that you are not pilots. We're not recruiting pilots, we're recruiting future pilots. So never, if you're a young candidate, you don't have much experience, there are a lot of things you can say and use about your own personal life and experience that will be relevant. There's some people, they believe that, saying that they were volunteering somewhere or they had a job in summer tossing burgers at somewhere, that there's no value. So I'm applying to be a future captain. There's loads of value. Teamwork, initiative, leadership skills, decision making. We run out of patties, and the supervisor wasn't around, so I had to do this and improvise and blah, 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 blah. Great example. We're not expecting that you're going to say what you did when you were flying a 777 and you had an engine failure. So, think about things you've done you're proud of. Also think about your weaknesses, and please be extremely honest when you talk about your weaknesses. If I had a pound or a euro, I was going to say a euro, sorry, because I'm based in Spain. If I had a pound for each time someone said that their weakness is, I'm a perfectionist, I'd be a millionaire, I can tell you. So try and be honest about your weaknesses. Explain how you're working on that weakness, what you're doing to improve, and that honesty will seek through. You know, we'll detect that, and that's really, really important, because if you're not aware of your weaknesses, if you struggle throughout the course with any element of training, which can happen, how are we going to help you? Because when we provide feedback and advice, you probably won't take it. So you have to be aware of what your limits are, and you have to be brave enough to defend them and present them in the interview environment if you're asked for it. Mainly, we're looking at motivation. And motivation for an airline program means motivation to join that airline, but also motivation to be a pilot. So think about, if you're not successful in that program, what would you do? What's your plan B? Think about everything you've done aviation related. And guess what? You're already doing something. You're here today. You're finding out what the industry is like at the moment, what opportunities are. You're finding out how to prepare for assessments. And this is something you could actually use in an interview. I would go to Pilot Careers Live and find out about this and this and this, and attend an amazing seminar from Alex Padina from FTE, which was life-changing. And you can use that. And obviously, think about everything you've done. If you haven't had the opportunity to fly PPL, etc., flight simulator, watching air crash investigation, these are real, valid examples of someone who is young and wants to learn more about aviation. So use them and mention these things. Don't think, oh, I can only say these really flashy examples. And then how to prepare for the interview. Well, I'm sure you know someone in some management position that has recruited staff for their small business, whatever it is. So speak to them and say, listen, when you recruit people, blah, 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 can we role play? It's sometimes a bit embarrassing to start with someone you know and say, oh, you want to be a pilot, and you're pretending, and you probably laugh at first, but do it nevertheless. And guess what? Even on your own, make sure you're on your own. It would be embarrassing if not. No, but just in front of the mirror, practicing. Or when you're just driving somewhere, or think how you would reply to the questions when you know an interview is coming up. And that puts you warm up and your brain is ready to answer. Expect the unexpected. Don't freeze if they ask a very odd question. There's some questions I'm not going to say, but sometimes if we see someone who's really well prepared, we're going to obviously make it a little bit more difficult to see the real level, and we may ask something you're not expected. There's one airline, I won't say the name, that during the selection process for cabin crew, they were asking people, the last question of the interview was, what was the color of the waiting room you were in? They wanted to see their attention to detail. The same airline was also asked after a number of very short, brief technical questions. Okay, so you're in the cockpit and this and this happens. What do you do? I do this and this and this. Okay, this photograph, what is it? Oh, that's a cumulus nimbus, blah, 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 blah. Okay, this, and suddenly, what's your favorite topping on a pizza? And I asked the guys, why did you ask that? It's bloody stupid. And I said, no, it's not. Some people would start laughing, and they'll say anything but pineapple or something like that. So you see they're relaxed, they're chill. But funny enough, some people would panic. They would freeze. They would start to stutter because they weren't expecting that. So if you're in the cockpit and something unexpected happens, how do you react to that? So that's why they were asking that question. So it doesn't normally happen. I'm sure that most of your interviews will have very standard questions or things that you will perceive as logical. But it could be that you have a recruiter that wants to be extra creative and they ask you a question you're not prepared for. So it's okay. Take your time. Take a deep breath. You can even mention if you notice that you're thinking a bit too much, say, I've never been asked that before. Just give me a quick second so I can think of a good reply. And that's perfect, okay? So you've got to demonstrate that you have the nerve and the ability to adapt to the unexpected as well. So, finally, as I say there, study your own CV as well. They're going to ask you, you're going to have the CV in front. I'm going to ask questions about your CV. If you say volunteering because you want to see like you're really nice, oh, one day I went to help a friend with something. That's not really volunteering, So make sure that what your language is. Oh, you speak a bit of Spanish. Oh, that's great. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Quieres que hagamos alguna pregunta en español o? Hola, cerveza, por favor. Oh, great. That's perfect Spanish. So, don't put anything that you can't defend, okay? Now, getting close to the end here. The group exercise sometimes could come after the interview, but sometimes it's normally before the interview. Now, the group exercise, especially when you have a lot of people that you want to see personally face-to-face, you probably can't do 300 interviews. but you can do, or 400 interviews, but you could do 100 group exercises with 4 people. So it's a great way, and there's a huge correlation with how people perform in a group exercise and they perform in an interview. Hardly ever do you see someone performing really well in a group exercise and not performing in an interview. So a group exercise, they're going to give you and your colleagues a problem that you have to solve. And rather than having interviewers, you have assessors who are just sitting down, quite literally, they give you a brief, this is the exercise, and you don't speak to them again. They're just looking at everyone and taking notes of what they say. So you all have to start working together. You don't know each other, just probably, hi, my name is whatever, and that's the only time you've seen the other people. So with these strange individuals, and first thing that happens naturally is you see them as competitors. But remember, this is a group exercise. So we're not eliminating a set number of people per group. So all 4 or all 5 could pass, all 4 or 5 could fail, and anything in between. So first rule, do not see the other members as competitors. And that will help you with your teamwork, exhibition of teamwork skills, okay? There's another rule, which I actually put as a very, very first golden rule. It's very surprising, but if you don't talk, you cannot pass the group exercise. And the amount of people that we see that sadly just sit in the corner and do not open their mouth, or they probably just, on one occasion, throughout a 15-minute exercise, nod and say, yeah, I agree there. So you have to talk. If you're not a chatty person, you don't have to talk like the 15 minutes, because obviously you have to let other people speak. But if you think about it, 4 or 5 people, 15 minutes, if everyone were to share the time equally, you have about 3 or 4 minutes each, not much more. So you have to intervene. You must intervene, and intervene with something relevant, not just being assertive and saying, yeah, I think we should do that. Yeah. So make sure that you participate. And if you're shy, you've got to be very aware that you need to communicate in the cockpit. So that's one weakness you have to work on. Okay? So other than that, we're going to look for teamwork, leadership, problem-solving abilities, etc. Final advice for group exercise. I can't give you all the tips, but I'll give you some. Final advice is finding that balance between being a leader and working as part of a team. Okay, don't try and control the group. Sometimes you may find it easy because you have an outgoing personality, and just out of chance, the people you have are a bit shy, etc. So great, you can show leadership skills, but don't be the wolf among the sheep. Don't take absolute control. If you see that someone is really quiet, invite them to talk. Again, you're not competing against them. So say, by the way, John Doe hasn't mentioned anything yet. Would you like to contribute? I'm interested in knowing what you have to say. So that is a nice balance that we want to see. And I tell you something, the best groups, the best scores are normally in groups where everyone works together quite well. So if you have that attitude, that's great. There's another 2 or 3 key tips, but I'm not going to give all of the whole recipe, okay? So you can still bake a nice cake, but that finishing touch will have to be on you.
Just a quick question before you go. So about the group exercise,
yeah.
What does it involve within aviation related potentially?
Not necessarily. It could
identifying even the test.
Yeah, it could be something like that. Yeah, you're in the middle of the jungle after a crash and you have to survive. You have to choose the items you're going to take with you somewhere or something like that. So normally it's always life-threatening. I don't know why. It makes it more engaging. There's never like you have to bake a cake. What ingredients you want to use? It's always something horrible. But yeah, it's something like that. You don't need to have a specific knowledge of that subject or come up with maths and physics and stuff like that. It's with the information that we give you on the document, you have everything you need to be able to participate successfully. Again, public speaking, important. So ask for feedback from people. I know that I sometimes talk too fast. That's it. That's the way I am. So if you were assessing me, I'd probably be a bit careful the way I talk and a bit slowly and pronounce a bit better. But you had to make sure that your personality also shows. Okay, that's also important because we don't want robots. We want people in the end, and we want to see the true colors of everyone in the assessment. And then, obviously, once we finish all of this, put the matrix together. It's all maths here. There's no this guy was terrible. but his suit was really, really nice. So we're going to give him extra points now. This is everything, all the exercise scores go into a matrix, and that gives us a final result with a ranking over 100%. And the best, if the airline wants to see 20, the best 20 are sent. There's nothing else. There's no subjective criteria. And then it could be that the airline is going to take whoever we recommend at that stage, or that the airline, let's use BA as an example again, wants additional tests, also because there's a huge number of applicants. So now the very best have to go through another process with the airline, which could be further group exercises, psychometric tests, you name it. So for that, and it's also a good tip for the previous interview with FTE, make sure you do your research on the airline. Don't just check Wikipedia, check their corporate website, the latest news. Really important nowadays is sustainability is key for many airlines, so check what the sustainability objectives are. And also, if it's not a new cadet program, there'll be people who have been selected for previous editions who are already training with the flight schools. So go on the flight school, check who's liking the pics. Okay, this person, they seem, yep, check the profile if it's open. I'm not talking about stalking, this is research, okay? Yep, beautiful eyes, so that definitely DM that one. No, so just look for cadets and send them a DM, and one thing about pilots is that they always like to say they're a pilot and talk about piloting. So if you're, hi, I'm a candidate, I'm looking at applying, blah, 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 I've seen that you were chosen for this, do you have any tips? Do that research, it's fine, it's fine. Just don't be creepy, okay? That's the only thing. Other than that, best of luck. Don't be, if it's one word of advice, the amount of people we see that are successful with these programs, second, third, fourth time lucky, is pretty high. If you've never gone through a selection process like this, you may fail the first time with a stupid mistake even. You may reach a final stage with another program, and probably it's the third program, that one that works for you. You will learn throughout the process. Don't be discouraged. Like, for instance, I'll actually give his name. I know he wouldn't mind. Faz or Fahim, he won the FTE scholarship. This is a one-off we did to celebrate that the pandemic was over. And since there weren't any cadet programs funding training, we decided to offer 2 fully sponsored training programs. So it's 250,000 euros worth of scholarships, and there were 2 winners. One in particular who came first was Fahim. He actually had failed his first assessment with Aer Lingus on the program. He was young, reached pretty far in the process, nearly the final, and he didn't make it. And he was obviously discouraged and was like, it's bad. So he went to study engineering first. He finished aeronautical engineering at the same time as he was applying for our scholarship, and he did extremely well. But he had prepared, like I've seen no one prepare for this. And the very final interview, since it was just 10 people reaching the very final interview with the CEO and myself, we knew that they were already confident that they'd done really well in all areas. So one thing we asked is, what have you done to prepare for this interview? And there'd only been 2 weeks between their previous interview. So it's like, well, what else can I do? And for him in particular, he pulled out, he said, may I show you something I put together? Yeah, sure. And he comes out with this dossier that he had prepared. And he even had screenshots of the online tuition, you could say, he had from an airline captain who actually trained with us ages ago and is involved in recruitment. So he found this guy on LinkedIn doing his investigation. He dropped a message and he said, yeah, I'm happy to give you some pointers. So he knew he had 1 chance in 10 of making it. It was just down to the final interview. So he had these screenshots and explaining everything. He said, well, FTE's origins were in Prestwick and I live in Edinburgh, so it's easy for me to go to Prestwick and actually see the place and get a feel of what, the home of FTE. He had his photographs there walking around the old facilities of what was FTE, and so on. He was in the RAF squadrons, university squadron, and he spoke to people there who were in recruitment as well. So he had prepared a lot. He didn't take for granted that since he had done extremely well in all the tests and he had been invited to the final interview, that's it. And he was the only, one of the very few, I'd say, not the only, that had specifically prepared for the interview. Normally the reply was, well, since I had prepared previously for this and this and this, I thought, that I'd already done enough preparation, so I just reviewed some of the notes. There's nothing there. So he did really well. And he did well through his training, as you can imagine, and he's flying with Aer Lingus now. So funny enough, he ended up with Aer Lingus, which was one of his favorite airlines from the very, very, very beginning. Flying the Airbus is what he wanted to do. But it all started failing his assessments with Aer Lingus. So if that's one inspirational story, I can tell you there's plenty more. So if you want to be a pilot, it doesn't matter what weaknesses you have, work on them. And as Fahim used to say, where there's a will, there's a way. So good luck. And if you need anything else from us, we're going to be at the stand. So happy to talk to you there. Cheers.